Hey, it's Mike with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Thursday. It's September 8th. This will be our chart lesson for today. And this is Thursday, so this wraps up our week. No chart lessons on Fridays. If you're new, I only do them Monday through Thursday. And I just wanted to start out showing you this daily chart. It looks really bullish here. It looks like we're probably going to bounce at least to the midline, probably back to this trend line. Things could change, but as of now, I would say we're going to turn down again, and I still say we're going to make a new low here. And but we were overdue for a little bounce. We'll see what happens. It looks like we probably would intersect tomorrow. We might intersect the midline and the trend line together, and at that point, we could turn down again. So we'll have to see how this transpires, but I still think we're going lower. I mean, we could bounce off this midline and go higher back up to this, all the way back up to here. We may just come back and retest this breakout area. There's a lot of different ways this could still go, but if this khaki colored trend line gets confirmed here and turns down, we're probably going lower. So we'll just have to see how it plays out. It looks like a really bullish day, and it was, because we did open right about where we closed yesterday, and we closed much higher. You can see at one point we traded much lower, though. It looks like we came back and tested. Usually when you push through a midline, you come back and test it, and that's what happens here. We closed out on the other side of the midline. We opened, came back and tested it, and then went higher. And that's standard. That's normal. That's what you would expect to happen. So that leads me to believe the midline on this channel is correct, and we're just going to see if we get a hold and a confirm on the third touch, and if we go lower, and that'll tell us a little more at that point. So yeah, we were overdue for a bounce though. So let's flip over to the intraday chart. We'll go through the trades again. It doesn't look so clear cut here. It was a really weird day. It almost looks like a range day. Again, we get a lot of sideways, choppy action. It's really hard to trade, and then the market will burst in one direction, and then it's chopping again. And I mean, the overall theme was up for most of the day, but there was some pretty strong sell-offs in there too, mixed in. Excuse me, mixed in with the little with the sideways stuff. But let's flip over to that chart and we'll take a look at it. And here it is. And today is rollover day. Normally I don't roll over till Friday, and sometimes it's Monday. I'll roll over when the volume rolls over, and obviously the volume did not roll over today, but that could cause a little wackiness too in the market. But you can see that looks like a range day, but this was the rally off the lows after we traded down early, and then we pretty much took all of that back and started over again and ended up trending up, and we had a little run up into the close here. So obviously the volume starts to get a little thinner up here, and things could happen. But this was a fairly strong sell-off right here. Like we may go lower for the day, but the market bounced, found support down here at the open, the 8:30 open, and headed high. And you can see how this is the open today, and you see how that price level was important. We came back and tested it. Here's the close from yesterday, and you can see how prices rallied around that close multiple times. And so these previous closes and the opens are usually important spots, so keep up with them, pay attention to them. But there it is. Again, on the daily chart, it looks like a range type day, but we closed we did close at the highs today. We closed higher than here, it looks like. So maybe we did, I'm not sure. Maybe we didn't close higher, but right at the highs. So either way, it still looks like a range day on the intraday chart. And so it was just kind of a weird kind of day. And you can see we had this tight range here, but there's not a lot of consistency to it. So it's hard to trade. And you get these good trends, but you don't get any setups on them. And so unless usually right at the beginning of them, there might be a trap or something. And a lot of you aren't good enough to trade those failures and traps and things. And so if you're new to this, you're probably not getting a lot of trades. So it's just period we're going through, don't let it get you down. It gets easier. I mean, we do get really strong trends that are super easy to trade. And there are some second entries in here with the trend today, but there's just not many of them. So usually the early morning is where you get your best setups, but even this morning that wasn't the case. 7 o'clock came somewhere up in this mess here, and we had a couple of news items, the unemployment, and then of course the chair. But you don't know when this guy's going to say anything, so this means nothing here. I usually don't pay much attention to those chair speakers because they're usually speaking at a breakfast or a lunch. Usually it's a luncheon or something, and you don't know what they're going to say and if they're going to say anything at all. And if they do say something, you don't know when during that speaking they're going to say anything. So they're not like a news item where you're expecting a rate to come out at 1:30. So don't pay too much attention to those, even though these are red, because they can, if they say something that surprises the market, that somebody catches a hold of, a reporter or something, it can spook the market and cause some craziness, but for the most part, it generally doesn't. So don't pay much attention to those. That's been my experience anyway. So anyway, let's get into the trades. 7 o'clock came. It was right in here somewhere on this upper. I think we were actually coming down on this move here, and we bounce. And this was the unemployment area right in here, and you can see you got this crazy bar. I don't really see anything that I like there. Now, we do end up with a second entry right here. Notice we move up, and there's a tick lower, and then we turn up again. And right off the trend line, there's a second entry. Big bearish bar. That's about as easy as it gets. And that's a nice trade. And depending on how you played it, you probably get a runner. Get as much out of it out as you can. We drop on down here. There's no other entries here. We drop on down. We come back to the trend line, and we get a triple test here. There's actually a triple test right here, but I don't like that one as much because it does make a new high, and it's more like a failed breakout of this, and it's kind of in no man's land, so it could turn down and turn back up. Could be that we're headed lower still too, so it's really hard to know what's going on right there. But notice we come back and we make a lower high, and then we test it again and make another lower high in that big bearish bar right off the key entry point. You got the confluence there of the range high and the trend line all in one. I like going short there. You got plenty of room to get out, and you can see that matters because it didn't go any further. It just kept bouncing across there before it finally dropped. And I don't think you want to enter in this stuff. It's too close to that support. And it looks like we may have had a close outside, so it could just make a little tick or two down and then reverse. It ends up going much lower, but there's just no way to know that. It's just too risky to try to bet on that. And of course, down here, once we make the new low, we don't really rally out of here. We just kind of chop sideways, and finally you get a failed breakout that makes a double top and a big bearish bar. So that gives you plenty of room. Notice we bounced at the midline on this little range here the last couple of times, so you need to pay attention to that. We don't worry so much about the EMA when we're up and down because prices are going to work back and forth through it, but we worry about that midline. And since prices bounce there twice, it's a chance it could do it again. So just make sure you got room to get out before there, and it doesn't matter. It just drops all the way down. And of course, where does it bounce? At the lows of the range. Boom, there it goes. There's no setup there, unfortunately. You got a little inside, really bullish bar, but it's an inside bar. You get no high or low. You get no reversal pattern. You get no trap. Nothing. It just takes off. And so there's not much you can do with that. I mean, you see this all the time, and as soon as you enter, it turns back down. So you don't know where this is going to stop, where it's going to go to, and you just have to kind of watch it and wait and hope something comes from it. And we run up, we get a close outside of that little channel up, and then it comes back here, bounces, comes back again. It sets a trend line right there, and it confirms it. Unfortunately, that's a first entry and not a very good signal bar. However, for the more experienced traders, you do have a new low here, so you get a first entry, second entry. So you could treat that like a failure and take that long right there. But that's not for everybody, so make sure you understand that. We pull back, we get a first entry, we turn down. Technically, that's a second entry long. I wasn't crazy about it because of all the congestion, and we did have a little double top here. You might argue for it to be green um, because you can see the green channel working up. So maybe you take that one. I'm just not real crazy about it. That could trip you up in a heartbeat, so I'll mark it green. We do run on up, then we come back and notice the trend line holding, but notice how the resistance is holding too. So you can't go long right there because it might fail, which it does. You would have got a scalp out of that, but ahead of time you don't know that. And there is a second entry long there, but at this point it's really hard to know if that's just resistance or if there's some kind of range there. So you're kind of stuck between the resistance and the trend line. So this could continue higher, or it could be a failed break above the resistance. But it's just hard to know, so I don't think you want to go short there. You definitely don't want to go long there. And so again, I think you just have to wait. And of course it drops and it runs down here and it tests this last low. And then it's pretty obvious then that, hey, we've got some kind of range probably going on here. And it bounces. There is a higher low right here, but again, it makes a little double top, 2-bar matching highs basically, and I don't know if you can see that. There's a lot of stem on both sides. Looks like congestion. Not much room back to the EMA, although if this is a range, the EMA is not going to matter that much. But we could be setting up a downtrend, so it's a little. I just think you can't go long right there. It's too risky. We run up and it turns down. Again, you got a little channel running up. Not a very good signal bar. And then you get a second entry here. And there's a chance you're going to retest this, and you might. That's another one you might mark green. But when that resistance holds there again, when we've had a lot of resistance there, we could just turn back down. But it does run up, and then you get another chance to go short right there off those range highs. Look how big and bearish that bar is. Again, we just bounced a few times at that midline, so make sure you got enough room, and if you do, take it. And you quickly get 2 legs down. Again, you don't want to go long there because the support's down here. And I don't think by the time you get this short set up, just sideways, and it looks like the EMA is holding again, and it does drop, and then all of a sudden it just bounces and goes the other way, and there's no really good setup here. You might say that's a higher low, but it looks congested. It's right. It closes well above the EMA, so you could maybe go long there, but there's a little bit of resistance across there, so that makes it dangerous if this is a little range. In the end, it doesn't matter. And again, you get no high or low, you get no second entry, you get nothing, and it just makes 2 legs up, and then it's turning down again. This does play out. You do get a closeout side move to a new high. That one's tempting. In a measured move, we've gone past a measured move there, but that's a lot of momentum, and it could still make another leg or 2 up. So I don't think you want to go short yet, and then you don't get another chance to go short. So in fact, you get a second entry long down here, but that channel's in play, and so you can't go long yet until you get a break in a new low, or you get something confirmed in the other direction. And it takes a few minutes, but finally you get a failure here. Notice the new low. You go short once, you push up, so now you got a leg up, a correction, a leg up. So second entry short, it fails real quickly. When it breaks above that bar, it's a failure. And so if you're going to enter, that's where you want to enter. And off again it goes, and again it just takes off, and you don't get any. If you're not good enough to trade these reversals, which most of you new people should not be fooling with them because it's just going to slow you down. There is a little double test right here, but look how congested that looks. And so once again, you just don't get much chance. And then finally it comes back here. 2 legs back. That's very tempting on a second entry, but that's a fairly neutral bar. And this has played out. You did get a close outside and 2 legs up, so we could get another one of those moves down. But instead it bounces there, and then in a few minutes later you get a failed second entry short. This is the low bar, the signal bar, but it failed when it broke above this bar, so your entry's 1 tick above that bar, but your safety stop has to go below that bar. And so there's a failure there, and that turns out to be a pretty nice trade. It trades on up. It's slow and methodical, but if you can get in this, you probably had to. It does come back here, so you probably would have gotten in it on a limit order. Probably wouldn't have done it, but you had to play this just right to get in it because you see the gap there. So you may not have even gotten in that trade. We run it up, and then we're just going sideways again. You get your close outside of this green channel, a couple legs up, but we at least do get a chance here to go short at the highs of this little range on a big bearish bar. Just make sure you got room to get out before here. In the end, it doesn't matter. It would have been a nice trade too. Probably get a runner, and it just takes off. And then notice we tried to go higher once, try to go higher twice, and that's a fairly bearish bar. It's not an ideal failure, but it's a failure all the same. And it does kind of look like 2 legs over back to the EMA. So maybe you take that trade. It looks like it's setting up another range, really. And it looks like a minute. It's going to be a bad decision, but it doesn't take long, and it's headed lower again. So once again, there's one opportunity to enter, and it's not even ideal. It's not the best. And if you don't take that, look at that move down. If you do catch this, that's a great move. And I don't know that you get a runner there either. Just depends on how you played it. But and then the bottom falls out of it. You do get a nice second entry here. First entry, second entry with a really low risk bar. I mean, how many ticks are in that bar? 7 ticks. We don't get back to the EMA, but that is a really strong sell-off. Take that second entry with 7 tick risk. Easy, just take that. And then a few minutes later, you get another second entry with a big bearish bar. Takes a few minutes, but it turns out to be another trade. And then here you get a triple test here, but notice how we made a higher low here and a higher high. So be careful. Wait. And a few minutes later, and plus you got a little bit of a channel working up. And here you get a close outside. You don't quite make a new high, but you make a triple test here on a double top, and you get a really fairly bearish bar. And so that's where to enter. It looks like we're going to set up a range here, which I think we do, and then you get a little failed breakout. And then suddenly it reverses, and there's no setup here, and then once again, and boom, it's gone. And there's not even a good reversal pattern to enter on this one. No second entries, no triple test, no. I mean, you might say, hey, there's a double bottom here, but look at the bar you got to enter on. You got to go long at the high when you've already got a breaking new high. Now maybe you entered this on the engulfing bar. I think that's risky. So it's one you might argue. Hey, you could argue for this to be green, but it's nothing I would recommend taking. You do get a second entry here, but horrible signal bar, too congested. And finally, you do have the breakout side, a couple legs up. You try to go higher once. You push through the EMA. You come back. You try to go long twice. It's not a perfect reversal type setup. However, you can clearly see that trend line. It's the third touch. It confirms it. You tried to go higher 3 times. It's a big bearish bar. It closes just below the EMA. I like that one. Just to try to get a scalp, and who knows, maybe it'll take off. Maybe it's going to be one of those that takes off again. Unfortunately, it's good for an easy scalp, but that's all you're going to get out of it, and then it's taking off the other direction. So we kind of got a little momentum to the upside here. And you get a little triple test here. Not a great signal bar, but it's bullish. It closes in the top 1/3. I marked it green, but It's the only reason is because the triple test way away from the EMA. The problem is there's not, and just in case it turned out that trend line, you don't have a lot of room. But also notice it looks like we have an overshoot here because this has been holding, and it looks a little further down. And so maybe there's an overshoot with that triple test, and in the end, that's obviously what it was because look how it takes off and boom. So that's what it looks like to me, an overshoot. I mean, just sometimes you get reversals and you don't get a retest and you don't get an overshoot, and that could be it. Maybe I'm wrong, but you can see it fits better the way I had it. That makes sense down through there, and this looks like an overshoot. But anyway, you don't get much chance. It doesn't matter what it is. You don't get much chance. And then we start going sideways. There's nothing in there worth trading. Nothing. And then finally you get a little failure down here. Unfortunately, it doesn't give you a very good signal bar to go long, or I'd say go long right here. But that's a neutral bar, and it's an outside bar. If you took it on the outside bar, maybe you're in good shape, but I don't think I would trade that on an engulfing bar. I'd wait for it to close, and when it closes, it looks horrible. Fails out the upside, but it makes a new high, so you need to wait on something else, and then look, it's just going sideways. Yeah, maybe there's a triple test there, but you can't go short right into those lows. See how it bounces back? Sometimes it doesn't turn back down, and so again, you get a nice move and no chance to enter it. Then it reverses and goes the other way, no chance to enter it. Finally, you do get a decent bar up here at the highs. I like this one. We haven't. It looks like there's two legs up, and there's a trend line here, but it's obvious there's a range here, so it could take precedence. So, but in the end, I really think it was one leg up. There, I believe that to be your channel. I think I misread it. You get a close outside, a couple of swings up to a new high, and it turns down. So either way, I still think you could take that because it's a lower high than all these highs across here, and it's a hugely bearish bar. I don't think I would take it on the engulfing bar. There is enough room to get out before the EMA, which you don't really care on sideways stuff. It's the midline. There's plenty of room for that, and there's still plenty of room for that. So I like that one. You can see it went straight to the midline, and then it bounces and before it goes higher. I don't see anything in here. It's, you can't go short right into that midline here. Looks a little congested. Then you're up here, and you do get another bar here, and notice it never triggers. And this is a good idea. I mean, even if you took that on the engulfing, maybe there's enough there for it to work. But that's why you got to be careful with the engulfing bar. I mean, there's just enough to get 6 ticks out of that. So you would have got a scalp on that if you took it, but I don't think you want to take that. It never triggers for anything else for if you use that for the signal bar. And then we break out, and we're just chopping along, and you actually get a little failed breakout there, and then a lower high. The key here is do you have enough room to get out? And I really think that's probably going to fail, and you're going to run down. And this does turn out to be that's probably the trade of the afternoon, that you actually get a lower high to enter on, and it takes off. And really what you got to be concerned about these lows here, but there's enough room to get out right there. You can see there's 6 ticks to that low, and there's an extra tick there, and of course you're really thinking about this. It's probably going to come back and retest the breakout area, even if it's going higher, and you got almost 3 points there. So I think you're okay taking that trade, and it turns out to be a pretty nice trade. And then you don't get anything else, and we're just chopping lower, and then finally again you get a higher low over here. There's a failure right here that I marked that maybe you take because it's back inside the range, and we're really trading in range and not necessarily a trend reversal. So this closing back inside the range and being so bullish, maybe you take that one. It's a second entry long too. Notice the new high, first entry, second entry. But again, you're probably better to wait and see if you get a high or low or a reversal from there. And we hadn't been getting them, but this time we do. We get a high or low and another really nice bar, and you got plenty of room to the midline. Take that trade. And that's it. That takes us into 230. I mean, there's nothing else here. I mean, that would have been a nice opportunity right there on a failed second entry long, double top, inside the range again. Plenty of room back down to the midline, to the lows here. I mean, it's only 2 minutes in, so maybe you take that trade. This wouldn't take one much more than a couple of minutes into 230, though. And that pretty much did it. So really, really strange trading days lately. It could be a lot of it to do with the market. I mean the rollover day, this rollover time. That could be a part of it. It could be, just the market situation we got now. It's just crazy times and a lot of volatility. And I mean, 1 minute you can be running screaming high, screaming to the top, and then screaming right back down to the lows. You got to be really careful. So, yeah. Hope everybody had a good week. Hopefully you didn't get too chopped up today. It was a tough trade. It was a tough day. It really was. And there, like I said, there are a few little good opportunities in there, but you got to be real patient. And a lot of these are more advanced trades too. That's the thing. That's the real kicker. I mean, just looking at the chart, there's plenty of trades a day, but a lot of them are advanced trades. So the average person's not going to be able to trade those, and you'd be better off not attempting to. So anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back. Be Monday before we come back. Tomorrow's Friday. So I'll see you Monday. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.